Well, let's talk gear a little bit.
Okay.
So you've got this nice Telly. Tell us about
Yeah.
this. Is it a 53?
It is a 53, and I should clarify. There's a long story with this guitar. The shortest version that I can give is that an old man pulled this guitar out from his bed and gave it to my dad when my dad moved here. Everything that was metal on it was rusted and destroyed, like unusable. The guitar wasn't playable, neck was bowed, all this stuff. Dad had a luthier guy here in town slowly start trying to put it back together over time, and the guy disappeared with the guitar, moved from town, just vanished. And 15 or 20 years later, the guy called my dad's studio and was like, hey, so-and-so, I've had your guitar done. I moved and took his job, and I've had your guitar done for 15 years. Tell me where to send it, and I'll send it. So he sends it, ships it to us, and we pulled it out of the box, and my dad just is like, that's not my guitar. Like, what do you mean? He's like, the color's not right, it's not my guitar. I'm like, it's been a long time, like, maybe. And I was a kid when that all happened, so I didn't know. I could weigh no opinion on it. And long story short, man, we've never been able to get the guy back on the phone again since he shipped us this guitar. And he shipped it basically as it is now, except with no there was no strings on it, and there were no electronics in it. And there was no serial plate with a serial number. Mm-hmm. None of the hardware, So I kind of took it as my pet project, and I took it to George Gruen and to Joe Glazer, and both of them kind of took it apart at the time and looked at it, and we know for sure it is a 53 neck and a 53 body. Whether or not they belonged together originally, my personal opinion is that, because this guy was guitar teching for like the Rolling Stones and Lenny Kravitz, my personal opinion is that he probably sold the guitar that was my father's. Guilt probably hit him, and somehow he was able to acquire a neck and body, put them back together, and ship it, and that helped his conscience enough that was the deal.
And then he wouldn't answer the phone.
Yeah. At the time, so I had Joe put it together. I bought a set of Lindy Fralin pickups at the time, and had him put it up, and the thing just played like a dog. There's no telling how long it had been without strings on it. The neck would move. It was not enjoyable to play. It was not fun. It wouldn't hold tune, and I would have to take it back to him constantly. And I actually had it out on the road. I was playing with Josh at the time, and had it on the road as my like backup guitar in case something went wrong. But I would always play it and I just tried it, and we'd go back and adjust it. And one day, I picked it up out on the road one day, and I was like, man, this thing's playing good. And it was like it had just decided to settle, like the neck petrified. And I mean, that was almost 10 years ago now, and I don't think I've ever had it set up since then. It hasn't had to go back to the shop. It's now it has become my absolute like truest guitar. It's always in tune. It always stays intonated. The neck never moves during the seasons. And so eventually, as it became more and more of a tool that I was using all the time, I started researching old pickups, and eventually kind of settled on what is in here now in the bridge. It's still the Fralin neck pickup. This is an old 50s Fender lap steel pickup that I read about. So, it's not totally uncommon. Some Telly players do it. Don from Buck Owens' band was kind of one of the early adopters of that thing. Because in the 50s, and Fender's lap steels were all 6 strings, and it was the same pickup as the Telecaster, essentially, but wound a little different. Yeah. And it's very microphonic. We were talking about that earlier. You can hear everything it makes, and you almost can't play the guitar live now because it's so microphonic. If you step on an overdrive pedal or something, it'll just howl. But for studio, I mean, this is a guitar that I play every single day on, wherever I'm working or whatever. It's one of the guitars that's always on my back, where I go, and and always use it, every single day. You can't really overstate that, really, for me. It's home base.
The lap steel, pickup in the bridge, that's actually what's in Keith Richards' #1 guitar, Macabre.
Yeah.
That has a late 60s lap steel pickup in it. And that actually came directly from Pierre, who's his tech.
Who's his
that I
guy.
met. Yeah.
Okay, yes. So that's, and there's been plenty of other adopters, people.
G.E. Smith is another one that's done.
G.E. Smith, and here in Nashville, people might know, guys like Jed Hughes and stuff that have played, and, a couple of Keith Urban's tellies are the same way because Jed kind of hipped him to that sort of thing. But it's a really good thing. It's a different. There's a lot of attack, but there's still bottom, and it's been a great pickup for me. And I hope it doesn't ever like die on me or go open, as they say. But when that day comes, if this pickup ever goes, I don't know what I'll do.
There are guys that can, fix them if they take the time to.
They can really rewind it properly.
Yeah,
Well,
they can fix the spots where it's actually come undone.
Really?
If you pay them enough.
Yeah, well, it'd probably be worth it in
Yeah.
this case because I'll be lost.
Well, let's hear a clip of you playing the guitar.
Oh yeah, sure. So and I'll tap on it, kind of show you how microphonic it is too. But this is just clean to the amp. You can see it's pretty microphonic there, but
Nice. Nice.
Yes.
So what kind of picks and strings do you use?
I play Diodario 11s on everything, and just all across the board, every guitar I play, because the different string tension on the guitars is part of what makes me play a little different. They inspire me to play different ways, and I know some guys will gauge up on shorter scale necks and stuff. I like that they all feel a little different to me. That's kind of the magic of them all. But so I play 11s across the board. Mostly that's the reason I upped from 10s is just I feel like the tuning's a little more stable with 11s, and doing the studio thing every day, the tuning is just it can't be overstated how important that is, man. And I just felt like the 11s were a little more stable on the tuning end, and so I went to that maybe 5 years ago or so, kind of moved up, and it was awful for about 2 weeks, just trying to bend and, but once you adapt, it's cool. And I don't feel any desire to go heavier, but I really like the 11s. And for picks, I change a lot. It's actually, you can tell, I brought this little pick. I have this little pick box that sits next to me everywhere I go, and I would say my standard is like a Tortex 1.14, similar. I use that a lot, but I swap picks a lot, like based on different sounds, that I'm going for. Sometimes if you need to do a strummy electric part, sometimes a thinner pick is better for that. The give in it is a little bit more of the sound. Your touch can be a little bit lighter and things like that. So I swap, I've got, 1.0s, and and then if you're playing acoustic, it's a whole different thing. I really love these Dunlop, these Ultex picks for acoustic, same gauge, 1.14, but there's a huge tonal difference between the Tortex and the Ultex to me, and I even have some of those, some of the more expensive, like I've got some blue chip picks, and I've got felt picks. I mix it up a lot.
It's the easiest and cheapest way to really, kind of fine tune your sound. The pick, it makes such a big difference.
It's such a big difference, man. But yeah, I mean, if these 1.14s are what are always kind of rattling around in my pocket for sure. If I'm playing a solo or something, that's the thing. It's the pick doesn't give too much, but it doesn't feel like I'm holding a quarter, because the string's already moving. It's a moving target. So you're trying to play, I don't really want to be battling two things moving at once. But yeah, these picks have always been my guy. And these are what my dad used. that's why I started playing with this pick, because this is what my dad always played, and they were always everywhere. You know, guitar players know these are in your dryer, they're in, you know, they're on your nightstand.
Yeah.
So if I was tinkering around at his place and wanted a pick, I just went to his room by his nightstand, and buy some quarters would be some of these.
Yeah.
So that's what I always played.
Well, here, let's hear a clip of you play the guitar, and then we'll talk about another one.
Okay, cool.
Very cool. So we just heard a clip of you playing this Les Paul. So tell us a little bit about this guitar.
Yeah, so this is, I always have to look because I can never remember. This is it's a 2008. A good friend of mine that was an engineer here in Nashville for years had this guitar. He played guitar some too, he's a good guitar player, but did more of engineering. He always had this guitar, and I'd always told him, like, man, if you ever want to sell a guitar, you know, let me know. And because it's chambered, you picked this up earlier. It's chambered, and so it's not heavy for Les Pauls. Mm-hmm. And you know, for any guitar, but specifically for Gibsons, the test for me, you know, when I go buy a room or something, I just kind of grab the low string and if that has some snap to it and rings, it's to me that okay, that's what I'm after, you know. Mm-hmm. And you know, this guitar always had that, you know. And he'd moved to New Orleans, and he called me up and said, hey, I'm going to sell that guitar. Do you still want it? I said, yes. Send it to me, you know, figured out. And it's great guitar, man. And again, one of those pieces that, you know, on paper, there's not necessarily anything special about it. It's, like I said, it's not a vintage guitar. It's not even a custom shop, you know, instrument or anything. It just is a good one, you know, and it rings just acoustically, it's got a good chime to it. And it plays even, always holds tunes, just a good, workhorse guitar. So when I got it, one thing I do kind of across the board to Gibson guitars if they're newer is I do kind of what a lot of people refer to as the 50s wiring, where we replace the pots, make sure there's 500K pots in there, put like period correct capacitors and that kind of stuff, and the way the volume and tone stuff all interact opens up and everything. So I had our good friend Jeff Sin, we all know, he does a lot of that stuff for me, and he did the 50s wiring, and we put Fralins in here. Big fan of those pickups. I don't have any kind of endorsement deal or anything with Lindy Fralin. I've been a fan of his pickups. I go buy them at the store. I think they're great. And had those in there, and then a similar story to the Telly. When I realized how much I was playing this guitar and how comfortable I was with it, and I started kind of researching pickups and like wondering if I should do a similar route with that, where I try to find a vintage set of a real old set of pickups, and started hunting PAFs, and it can be tricky and they can be expensive, but I was able to find an original PAF for the bridge here. And when I had it put in, I just used the cover from the Fralin so that they look similar. And that the guitar was already great, and then that just added a little bit of special thing, And on a side note, I gotta say, anyone watching it, I feel like I got extremely lucky in both of these pickup deals, because I have played plenty of old pickups that are not good. Just because it's an old vintage pickup does not mean it's a good one. And
Right.
they can have stuff. I made both times when I bought these pickups, they were online, and I made them, send me pictures with the readout to see how hot the pickup, make sure the pickup was still active, because you hear horror stories of guys getting dead pickups sent to them that they paid, $1,000 for whatever. And but even then, man, even if the output is correct, it can still just be a jive pickup, man. It's just like guitar, anything. There are duds, man. There are plenty of duds.
Absolutely.
Yeah, especially when you're talking about something that was handmade a long time ago. I mean, there was room for error when it was being made, and then who knows what kind of climate or situation it could have been kept in, extreme moisture situations. And so, be careful if you ever, if you're doing that sort of thing. I'd tell anybody, be careful. I'm sure you would too. Try to do. But I've got lucky with both of these situations. I got what I asked for and what I was hunting, and so it's been a great pickup in this guitar, and I love the neck pickup too. The Fralin stuff is great. I got plenty of guitars with those pickups in there too. So
What model Fralin pickup is that in the neck?
this is his pure PAF.
Okay.
And that's what the set was. And I'm a big fan in general, and with my, it's his pure PF, I love those humbuckers, and I love any of his vintage single coil line. I personally, and it's total a preference thing, I don't like hot pickups. We talked about the Telly being microphonic. To me, the lower output, the better the pickup, because I can always do things to gain it up. And particularly if you've ever played in the humbuckers, particularly if you've ever played an old Gibson, and I've been lucky a couple times to put my hands on real 59s and stuff, and those pickups don't sound like what you think they do. They're not rock and roll machines, They're not high output. They're low output. They're real chimey. They clean up really well.
And they're very clear sounding.
They are open, all those things. And so, and to me, I love that. But that has, man, there's so many variations. That kind of stuff depends on where guys like to set their amps, how they use their pedals. I understand. I would never, in anything guitar related, I would never say this is the way, because there's plenty of great sounds. And I actually do have a couple guitars that I specifically have really hot pickups in for certain purposes, where like
What would that be?
well, if I get called, occasionally I'll do stuff that's really, really hard rock, borderline on what some guys would call metal these days. Now the genres are so it's hard to
Right.
say. But while you can gain up, a low output pickup and really crank it and get, killer classic rock sounds and stuff, particularly some of the newer modern rock and roll where guys are playing EMGs or even stuff like a Van Halen, type of vibe. It's like, to me with my hands, it's not quite captured with a gained up low output pickup. Part of the magic is that high output pickup in that sound, and it's part of the, and you don't have to dig in. There's a certain effortlessness to the soloing and all the harmonic stuff you get, if you're doing like, I hate to say 80s, but like pinched dive bomb, that kind of stuff, man, those hot pickups are a part of that sound. So there's definitely a place for those, and it's a great thing. For me, I think for the type of music that I'm playing 90% of the time, the low output stuff is always the way for me because they're chimey, they're open. I can gain them up, pretty heavily as needed. But there is a thing to the hot output pickup, especially in certain guitars, man. Everyone needs a good old super strat, with a hot pickup in the bridge, or something laying around.
Well, cool. Let's take a little break and let's hear the 335, and we'll come back and talk about that guitar.
Awesome. That's good.
So that's a great sounding 335. What year is it?
Yeah, so this is a 1967, and it's all original except that this is a non-original Bigsby. It must have been, it was on there when I bought it, and it's an older Bigsby. So someone many moons ago decided to put that on there. And I do have the original bridge with the nylon saddles, but I swapped those out for this Tone Pros bridge with these the aluminum saddles.
Give it a little more clarity in the low end.
It's got a little more clarity, a little more tack. It's we talked earlier. The nylon saddles tend to give. It's like there's a little more sag to the instrument. It's a softer thing.
Sponginess.
And to me, as opposed to a stop tail piece guitar, you already get some of that with a Bigsby because it changes the string tension and everything. So I chose to kind of put this back on there to try to retain a little bit of the snap to it. And then these are the original, what we call patent number pickups.
Yeah, because they got the patent sticker on there.
Because they got the patent. And good sounding pickups. I kind of went through it, playing it. They're both good output. Great, not too hot, but they're both clear, and it's been a good guitar. And the Bigsby, having the Bigsby makes me play it a certain way. It's that's a thing with me. With almost any guitar that has a tremolo arm, there's just an instinctive thing about reaching back and grabbing it for me that I'm always. You'll never see me playing a tremolo guitar that's like that. Even if it's a Strat style trim or a Bigsby or whatever it is, there's something about it, my subconscious that knows it's there and wants to, grab it and work
Use
it.
it.
Yeah. This has been a good guitar. I've used this on a lot of records. Been a good guitar.
Well, let's talk about your pedal board here.
Okay.
Tell us what's on here.
Yeah. So this is my my grab and go board that I had wired up here in town. For sessions, I have a real, for things where we have cartage here in Nashville,
That's where people bring the gear for you.
people bring the gear for me. Sometimes on the bigger accounts, major labels, and there's lots of money involved. They'll bring in a huge rig for me, for people that don't know. And there's a much larger pedal board, but the same guys that built that pedal board, a company here in town called Exactone Solution. Barry and those guys over there do a lot of work for us.
Very nice guys.
Great dudes.
Yeah.
They wired this pedal board for me, and just like they did the other one. And the concept was this was just my board that I can grab and go. It's on a pedal train size board. I think the PT2 or something, and just a good average size board. It's got a little bit of everything on it, so I can just grab this and run in. Or if I go play a gig around town, this is the board I use, and it's great. To do demo sessions with it and everything.
So start from the beginning and just kind of tell us what's on there.
So here I have a patch bay on the side here that the guys Exactone put in for me, and it's a buffer in and out here on the side.
What? It's not true bypass?
I know, yeah, right, I know, but believe it or not, and I had them do a little thing here. Because occasionally, I'll have a spare pedal that I want to throw in on the front.
So it's got like an insert.
Well, this one doesn't have the insert, but what they did do for me is there's a 9-volt barrel tap here.
Oh, wonderful.
So I can just set the pedal here, plug in, and then out into here, and then I have the power, so I don't have to carry 9 volts, and because my power supply is mounted underneath.
Absolutely.
Now, my larger board does have a couple inserts, like you were mentioning, that are, you can start, and that's definitely handy. But for this, just trying to keep it simple. So from there, they've got my my tuner is isolated coming out of the buffered thing. So it's and I tune. I use my volume pedal a lot. So every board, every situation I have where a tuner is involved, it's always on and always getting signal, and I just mute it by pulling the volume pedal up.
Sure.
So it's always running. But from the buffer, I go. RC booster to the mini foot fuzz here, this JHS mini foot fuzz, to the Winford drive, to the Mostortion, I believe. I think that's the right order. And then I hit the volume pedal, and I keep again. I did it this way because my father did it this way, and at the time, I just was like, oh, that's how you do it. I didn't, I was younger, started playing this way. But I like dirts before the volume pedal because that's all your noisy stuff, and if you got a wah pedal, same way. It's like, and so if I have an overdrive on or a fuzz pedal, we talked earlier about fuzz pedals being kind of noisy. I can leave it on and not have to do the pedal dance, but it's before my volume pedal's up. It also, in the recording situation, means that I can click things on and off with my volume pedal up without hearing a click in the track. So for me, it's almost a measure of control having my pedals before there. Now, obviously, that does affect. I know some guys like to adjust the level of dirt with their volume pedal, and if that's the case, they put it afterwards. But this has always been the way I've always run pedal boards, and it's always worked for me.
Yeah.
Now, for the same reason, I have delays and modulations after the volume pedal because I don't want to kill delay trails. So when I'm doing swell type things, if I'm trying to mimic a steel guitar or something, I can pull the volume pedal back, but the delay trails still go.
Right.
So from my volume pedal, I hit this EQ and
So what do you use the EQ for?
well, various. Sometimes it's really great for a simple solo boost. I definitely use it for that some. And this one's been modified where it's a slightly different EQ scheme than what's on the standard Boss pedal. And some of these frequencies tend to relate a little bit more to where the guitar lives. It's just kind of this one's been specialized for guitar. But man, I'll do everything from, I can use drastic cuts of the top and low to do like lo-fi settings. Sometimes it's more of like a gag premise. Sometimes, you simply want to add a little mid-range to a pedal you have on, or whatever. So it definitely, that's a pedal for sure that has multi-uses. That's on every one of my boards that I have, and you move so fast in sessions, and particularly demo sessions here in Nashville. And if I this is essentially what I would carry in on a demo session if I don't have cartage, and if your combo amp is isolated from you far away, and you switch guitars and you need a little low end, it's just an easy fix, right here on the ground. I don't have to go and turn the knob on the amp. You certainly could, but sometimes it's just easier.
There's not time.
It's just a quicker route to get there, or if I need to add a little top to something, or if I want to make a part real small, like we're talking about, like even if it's not lo-fi, common misconception with guitar players and recording is, not every sound can be this big sound. They just can't. There's not enough room for that stuff in the context of a mix. Every part you do can't be some, huge thing. And sometimes when you're doing a little chorus part, you're doing a little thing for the verse, you've got to find the place it sits in there. And man, a good EQ pedal, whether it's this or any other pedal, can be invaluable for just that. You want to make this little small thing, and it goes right here, and that's the spots. And you talk about mix-ready sounds, because if you give them all these big sounds, the mix guy's just going to thin out some of them because there's not room for them. So yeah, that, and then I think so. From this, I believe I go to the timeline first, and then this M9 is last, and.
Is this a standard M9, or has it been anything?
No, this is the standard M9. I know there's some mods going on out there with those things. To be totally honest, I've just never been unhappy with the way mine sounds stock. I'm a big believer in these pedals. I have a ton of them. They're on every board I have. I use them for all kinds of different things. Just a big fan of what they do, and it's just so much firepower in one box. They're great pedals.
See, the timeline is mainly delays, and then the M9 is doing all your like modulation and tremolo and any oddball stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I will use. There's a few delays in the M9 that I do. It's not even that I prefer them to the timeline. It's just they do a thing that the timeline doesn't do. There's a particular modulation that I like that I use for a gag or something. And they just do different things, and 2 delays can seem like overkill two delay units. But again, in the spirit of moving fast, it's not uncommon that I have, you know, lots of things kind of ready to go when the track starts. You know, I might have a reverse delay queued up on my timeline that I'm going to kick in a second verse, but then, you know, and I've got like a standard long delay that I'm using for the rest of the song, but then I might want to kick on slapback for a solo or something, you know, in the middle. And so it's like sometimes having all those things queued up, or having the, you know, again, especially in the context of demo sessions here in Nashville, where we're doing 5 songs in 3 hours most of the time. And so
that's a lot of
I mean,
work
it's
in 3
pretty
hours.
simple math, you know, 36 minutes from the
Yeah.
time we hear the song from the first time to it being done, basically. And
Wow.
and so a lot of the, you know, boards for me, it's built around those concepts where you know, you're trying to just, it's a lot of firepower, as many options as I can get to quickly. That's what I love about the M9, is like I can have, you know, multiple reverbs kind of set, ready to go, you know, in a pinch, a real quick thing. You know, I can do fast and slow tremolos. I can, you know, have, you know, I can throw in expression pedal and have a wah going on right there. And, you know, you can store all those things and cycle through, and it's just so fast, man. It's a lot of firepower for one box. And I think it sounds great. You know, I really do. I don't think I'm not to say that I'm sacrificing for the firepower. I think they're making great stuff. I think it sounds really good. I really love the reverbs on the M9 too. Love the reverbs on a lot of those patches.
Would you show us maybe get a couple, you know, different sounds that you might, you know, use with the 335, just kind of showing, you know, some things you would do with your pedals?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, one thing, especially with the Bigsby being on this guitar, is to me it makes it very suitable for, you know, what I kind of call vibey, or you could say ethereal sounding guitar. So, you know, I have just kind of a simple digital delay armed on the timeline that's, you know, tappable, and just a middle of the road reverb setting on the M9, and I'll play a minute and kind of switch through the pickups, and you can kind of see, you know, hear some of the stuff that I might do with that sound. You know, no dirt here on the floor. It's just the amp sound.
Cool. Well, show us, you know, maybe how you use, you know, some of the, you know, the dirt, like, because you've got the Winford, you've got the Mustortion, you've got the RC, and this, you know,
The fuzz.
the
but,
fuzz.
yeah.
So how do you use those?
Well, so again, for whatever reason, you know, it's always worked. I hate to use the word philosophy, but it's always worked for me to use pedals not necessarily in real extreme settings. You know, so with overdrives, particularly for me, or distortions, you know, fuzzes, whatever, it's rare that you'll see one for me that's like really pegged out, or like where there's a huge drastic change in the natural amp sound from the start. To me, that can be, in certain elements, that can be really beneficial in live settings. If you have to, depending on the music, if you have to really change, like, you know, in a hybrid part from a a small, clean sound to this huge thing. You know, I get it. But for me, it's kind of a stair-step philosophy. You know, it's like a little more, a little more. And it's not uncommon for me, particularly if I'm playing a solo, to have maybe 3 pedals stepped on, you know, especially, again, in demo world. You know, in records, you know, if I've got the time, I love to, you know, switch and plug in my Marshall and like just turn up the Marshall and play like that. And, you know, depending on the sound for a record, I'll even unplug from a pedal board and just, you know, use a clip-on tuner and plug right into an amp and dime it and let that be the solo sound, you know, or whatever. But we're moving quick, so, you know, you're trying to make it happen. So I'll go through and step on them, but basically, you know, the RC booster is always just a really mild setting. That's just if I just want to push the amp a little bit, just a hair. You know, sometimes you get to a chorus and you want the amp to hit a little harder, but you don't want to hit harder because tuning, you know, you're trying to stay in tune. You don't want to bang your guitar. So sometimes I'll kick on RC just for those kind of elements, just to beef up. Or if I need to step out in a verse and I just want a little bit more in the verse, I'll step on the RC booster, do that kind of thing. And then the Mostortion and the Winford, in my opinion, they're basically set at about the same gain structure, but there's different, you know, EQ frequencies within these 2 pedals, and there's different things that they kind of inherently have. And, you know, to me, the beauty of different overdrives is those in the different characteristics. Again, on demo session, when I'm moving really quick, if I've got 1 amp, you know, I can do a rhythm part with 1 guitar and 1 of these pedals on maybe, and then, you know, really quickly switch nothing but the pedal and do another rhythm part, and it's not going to be the exact same tone. It's not going to get that phase out thing, or when you double, you know, it can almost get smaller. Those frequencies kind of line up together and fill the gaps in each other. And then, like I said, yeah, for solos or real heavy stuff, it's not uncommon for me to step on 2. Now, there's always exceptions. I'm not saying I never crank one, but it's the way it goes. I'll kind of step through each one and then maybe step through all of them. You can kind of hear the... Let me just make sure this is D strings right there.
And a fine Peterson Strobo Stomp.
Yeah, love the Peterson tuners. This guy's been on here a while. I love the new versions too. I have the new Classic Stomp or whatever they call on one of my other boards. They're great tuners. Love them. Yeah, so here's just the direct amp sound.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, you know, all 3 of those things. And then the fuzz is a real straight ahead. I'll show you that real quick.
Very cool.
Yeah, man.
Tell us about this amp that you're playing through.
Yeah, so this is my favorite old Princeton. I have a few of these amps. Princeton Reverb 1968, I believe. It could be 67. I think I get confused. I think it's a 68. But, you know, the guts of it are all original. The difference in this one, most people say, well, that's not a 68, it's not a drip edge baffle. But I replace the speakers in these Princetons with 12-inch speakers.
And what 12's in there?
This is a warehouse guitar speaker, Reaper 30. And I believe I think that's supposed to be their G12H ish. They probably would may say that again. I'm not an endorser of the. I just I try a lot of different speakers. We talked earlier. Speakers are an interesting thing because some speakers sound really great new, and then they lose a certain thing as they get old, and then some speakers sound better the longer you wear them out. So the speaker thing can be that's a rabbit hole anyone can go down, like way down.
So does this sound better with a new speaker or with one that's worn in?
Yeah, exactly, right? That's the $1,000,000 question. I don't know, honestly. I will say I'm a big fan of the Eminence speakers. The Private Jack in their Red Coat line is a speaker that I kind of always come back to. I try other things, but that was in this amp for a long time, and I just love the way those speakers sound. Really good sounding 12-inch speaker. I'm just for me, it's like we all have our own versions of like iconic guitar sounds. We all have the things that we, and for whatever reason, Princeton amps, with the 10 or the 12, for me, it was one of those amps I identified with immediately. And, I plugged it in and was like, oh, this is what I've been hearing in my head. This is the thing. And, they sound great cranked. They get a great like rock guitar sound if you peg them, and the onboard, the reverb in there and the tremolo is like some of my favorite to this day. And it's definitely a desert island amp for me.
So why would you put a 12 in a Princeton instead of using a deluxe reverb?
Yeah, great question. Okay, yeah. So, well, first and foremost, even with a 12-inch speaker in the Princeton, the deluxe is still going to be louder, just is. And to me, there's just a magic in the breakup point of Princeton reverbs, particularly. Now, because on a side note, Princeton amps, for those that might not know, the non-reverb version are a completely different animal.
Yes.
Because they're missing the reverb stage and the gain structure. They're actually a lot cleaner.
And they get louder and they have more headroom.
They get louder, they have more headroom. And that's actually, for Tom Petty and Mike Campbell fans, that's actually truly the Mike Campbell amp. It's the non-reverb. It's just the Princeton amps. Similar to a deluxe reverb versus a deluxe amp, and you know that.
Right.
But there's something about the gain staging of a Princeton reverb and the breakup point in the amp with my, with my kind of low output pickups and the way I touch that's just always worked better and even better than a deluxe. It's not the same animal to me. So the reason I put 12-inch speakers in there is just because the bottom is a little bit tighter. It's not even a loudness thing. It's that, to my ear, the bottom stays a little rounder and a little tighter than the 10-inch speakers. I keep one of my Princeton's original with the 10-inch in there for that sound. If I'm kind of specifically, it can be great for, lo-fi records, blues, records when you're not necessarily concerned about being modern. If you're making period type records, they're really great. It's a great sound for that. And it's a great bedroom amp too. The 10 sounds awesome. They're great. But the 12 is a little more pleasant for me to stand in front of. I mentioned earlier, this is my gigging amp too. This is the amp I take with me. It's always in my car, like ready to go. And but the 12-inch thing is just a way more pleasant thing. And that's been, the 12-inch speaker in the amp has been, in the Princeton's has been widely attributed to many people. I don't know who was like the first guy to start doing it, but I remember vividly seeing Steve Warner play one with a greenback stuck in it at the Opry one time, and I remember thinking like, man, that's pretty cool. Like, well, man, and I'm a big Steve Warner fan, and his son Ryan and I are good friends, and I remember asking Ryan about it, and he was like, oh yeah, man, everybody does that. You need to do that. And I was like, oh, that's when I started doing that, and I fell in love with the amp even more. And then I was like, oh, well now I can play like rock stuff through it too, because the bottom end stays a little more thing,
Right.
But yeah, they definitely desert island amps for me are Princeton reverbs. It's just a great Swiss Army knife of an amp. They do so many things. They can do I've played 3 guitars through them in this thing, and haven't touched the knobs at all on the amp between the 3 guitars, and they respond great to all the different instruments, and they throw a lot of bottom for a small little amp. I can't say enough good things about Princeton reverbs. Love them.
Well, cool. Yeah. Well, Derek, this has been a real pleasure, and thank you for coming down.
Thank you for having me so much, man.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah.